Hello, I would like to introduce Frederik Ahlemann, who will tell us a few things about the future of IT departments, I think, right?
Yes, that's right, exactly.
So you did a presentation in which you told a few things about digital transformation. Does it look rather like a revolution or very, very long distance evolution?
Well, it's actually both. I think it very much depends on the industry we are talking about. It also depends on the specific company we are talking about. There are certainly some industries that already have, I would say, 2 or maybe 3 waves of digital transformation behind them. There are certainly other industries who are in the midst of the first transformation wave, so it very much depends. When you look, for instance, at the media industry, like music industry, to give you one example, this was an industry that was affected by digital transformation very early on already in the 1990s with the advent of the MP3 files. And then we saw online stores for music, and now we are seeing streaming services for music. So there have been some waves of digital transformation already. In other industries like chemical, they are at the very beginning, I guess. And when I talk of digital transformation or talk about digital transformation, I certainly mean more like a revolutionary use of information technology and information systems, not so much an incremental one. Because incremental improvements have been done for decades already. We know this basically since the advent of the computer. The digital transformation is so special because now it's about new products, new services, new business models that unfold a disruptive impact on the marketplace, on a specific sector, like we have seen in the music industry.
Okay, so in many current, I would say, trends in IT look like, I don't know, reinventing the wheel in this revolution. What I mean, for instance, we have a cloud, which is very, very similar, or looks very similar to the old school data centers that we had, let's say, in 1960s, 1970s. And the only difference is that you do not have to grab those, I don't know, tapes and go there, or cards printed, right? You just upload your code somewhere. So how do you think, should we expect much more things like that, reinventions?
Yes, first of all, I think you are perfectly right. And you gave the example of the cloud. I think there are similar examples. For instance, artificial intelligence, which was a hype already in the 1980s and 1990s. Then the topic disappeared basically from the agenda, and all of a sudden everybody is talking once more about artificial intelligence. So the question is why? I think the answer is that these topics have matured significantly in the meantime, and they are many of the algorithms, the applications, the approaches we now have, for instance in artificial intelligence, but also cloud computing, are now good enough for many, many use cases. And they weren't good enough a couple of years ago. So I think it's more like, not like a reinvention, it's more like a question of maturing technologies. So it just took 2 decades until artificial intelligence was good enough to be deployed on a larger scale. I think that's the point.
Okay. And from other point of your presentation, you talked about designers and programmers, difference. You underlined the difference between those 2 groups. At least in Poland, I see plenty of well, ads, right, where companies are looking for workers described as programmer / designer, 2 in 1. I don't think it should work well, but it seems it worked. But you said it's rather going to be separated.
Yes, I think first of all we need to clarify what a designer is and what a programmer is. A programmer in a narrow sense for me is someone who's really writing code with a programming language, and which leads to a usable piece of software. A designer is something else. A designer might be a blend of maybe both a business analyst, someone who is doing user interface design, but maybe also somebody who is designing business processes to some extent. So he is active before the programmer can be active. And I think we all agree on the fact that a well-designed application has significantly higher probability of adoption. So having a good design means higher adoption, means higher acceptance, means probably higher value for the user. And this is certainly a success factor for digital business models. So especially when we look at the consumer sector, adoption rates are key for success, also for company success. And therefore designers are so important. And I also believe that the mere programming is something you cannot really differentiate mostly. I mean, because you will use and integrate software packages anyway. Programming nowadays is more like integrating software packages and then developing everything from scratch, right? But the design process, I think, is the real success factor. And this is also, should also be a core competency of companies that develop digital product services or business models. They need to have this design competence, because here we decide whether a new business model is successful or not.
Okay, so well, you also underlined that IT departments until now, I would say, were not flexible enough. They are too structurized and etc. You know.
Yes. Yes, certainly, for a very simple reason, because for many years the primary objective of IT departments was to pick demands and requirements from business and implement them by means of software. And this has certain implications. The implication or the underlying notion of the IT department is one of an organization that is not really defining the requirements, but just getting it, just picking it. The requirements themselves, the IT demands themselves, were formulated or developed by the business departments. In essence, this means that the classic IT organization, and I think most IT organizations today are classic IT organizations, are good at actually implementing stuff, are good at operating stuff, are good at providing high-quality IT services. However, the capabilities we need in the future are completely different. In the future, we need innovativeness. In the future, we need creativity. We need design capabilities. We need business model-related thinking, which is something completely different. And I think the majority of people who are working in today's IT organizations lack these skills and abilities. It's not that they are not intelligent enough, of course not. These are highly bright, intelligent people. But for a very long time, they have been trained with regard to other skills and capabilities, and all of a sudden entrepreneurial thinking, creativity, innovativeness becomes important, but this is nothing you can find in most IT departments.
Okay, so IT departments right now are supposed to become flexible, agile. For me, this sounds like converting them into internal or maybe external virtual organizations.
Yes, there needs to be some type of transformation. I completely agree. The question is, can you actually manage this transformation? So many IT executives currently are wondering if it is possible to transform their IT organizations in such a short time frame. And the answer very often is no, it's not possible. You cannot transform an IT organization with 500 IT professionals from a service-oriented, industrialized, more formal organization within months into a creative, innovative organization. That's very difficult. And this is where the problem lies, actually, and why so many IT executives have headaches nowadays. They have headaches, they scratch their head because they do not know how to manage this transformation. And the organizational response is manifold. So there are many different solutions to this problem. One solution might be that you invest in startups, because we know that startups have more of this entrepreneurial culture. Another solution might be that you set up a completely separate organizational unit close to the IT department, and this organizational unit is dedicated to innovation. It might also that you say, okay, it's maybe not the domain of the IT department, maybe we utilize the research and development department and put some IT professionals in the R&D department, and they do this innovative work. So many different scenarios. I don't think that there are best practices for this problem, but for sure we cannot say that there is a one-size-fits-all solution. The question how you manage digital transformation, how you institutionalize it, very much depends on context factors.
And the team that you have inside, right?
Yes, of course, certainly.
Because, as I heard some time ago, IT specialists are one of the worst people to manage. They are the hardest people to manage. And so in this case, if you have to redesign or the whole structure, maybe convert it from some very strong old hierarchy into a matrix model, it might become really hard, right?
Yes, certainly. And that's the problem. And this is why there is no easy solution. Most organizations have understood that I think you can do this. But the problem is that many organizations are running out of time. So let's assume it takes you 2, 3, or 4 years to transform your IT organization. This is a huge amount of time. And very often the marketplace doesn't give you this time, because in the meantime your competitors have new products, services, business models established, and maybe you are out of the market. So time's running out, you are in a hurry, and time-consuming change management processes are hard to realize then.
Right, and I think that one of the factors that is really slowing down the whole process is that the security department, which very often is separated from the IT, will just tend to block too rapid changes because it's against the security rules, right?
Yeah, this is another set of problems you are mentioning here. Yes, certainly. I mean, in a startup environment, for instance, you have less regulation, you have less policies, you have less standards and rules, and people can work more freely, and they can test and experiment and check things out, which is very often not that easy in a corporate environment. So I recently talked to an executive from a large utility firm in Germany, and she told me that they appointed an intern, so they hired an intern for some app development purposes, and it took them 3 weeks only to set up the development environment for this guy because of company policies. And after 4 weeks he quit, because he said, okay, I don't want to work for a company where it takes 3 weeks to provide me a development platform. This is not the place where I want to work. I mean, when I work at a startup, it's a question of one afternoon, and then I have all the tools available on my computer that I need for programming. So this is a perfect example how organizational policies, guidelines, standards, rules can hinder this transformation process. And many enterprises currently realize that it's not only culture, it's also policies and rules, it's also leadership style, and many factors more that make it so difficult for companies to establish an entrepreneurial spirit. Right.
Okay, so thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.